All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the session on designing for efficiency, best practices for managing tasks. This is a big turnout. I didn't expect this many people. It's not as exciting as new features, a lot of shiny new features in the sessions, these 2 days. But glad to have everyone here, and let's get into it. So a little bit about me. I've been a PM at Workato for about 5+ years. So worked on a lot of core features from connectors to governance features like RBAC. More recently, I transitioned into the growth PM role for usage visibility. So this is where I work in now. Very exciting set of features. In my spare time, I love to travel. And I'm actually a designer in background. When I say it's product design, but it's product design as in design tables and chairs, right? So a little bit different from software product design, but I think I've been a Workato user since even having that background. So I've built lots of recipes as my time as a CS person as well. So moving on. So in today's session, we'll be talking a little bit about how to understand and think about tasks and utilizations, some of the new capabilities that came out in the last couple of quarters, and how they can help kind of making your recipes more efficient. Also, how to monitor your workspaces, and of course, what's upcoming, right? What's exciting on the roadmap. All right. So let's start with understanding tasks. So this will be a relatively short session. I think everyone here should be quite familiar, so I won't go into too much of the nuances about what is a task or how we count tasks. But I think very simply, right, all the executed actions in the recipe, depending on the logic flow for that particular job are considered tasks, right? So when you think about this, it's very important to consider building and structuring good recipes, and not just think about tasks as solely a billing consideration, right? So essentially, every time Workato gets something done on your behalf, that's a task, right? Whether it's creating an issue in Jira, whether uploading a file in S3, right? Very different types of actions, but task definitions today are kept pretty simple in the current model. Pretty consistent for simplicity's sake, basically. So it's also easy to dismiss a task. I mean, I've talked to a couple of customers as just an API call, right? Hey, you're just doing that. But under the hood, of the connectors, we abstract away of the difficulty, right? You get the benefits of, having to not deal with memory and DevOps, right? So I think, that's a value of what we're doing as well, right? With every task that is being executed in the recipe. Right, so now we know, rough picture about tasks. So what exactly does optimization mean, right? We think about optimization in the same vein as building good recipes, right? Efficient recipes. So you saw how tasks were counted just now, right? Only when steps are executed do we count tasks, right? So, designing effective recipes are kind of core to that. So we'll go through some strategies a little bit later on designing better recipes. But also, think about tasks as starting from the use case, right? So it's not just for optimization's sake. Everything starts from what you need as a business outcome, right? So if your users are holding iPads on the ground, expecting real-time updates on inventory when a sale happens, you might not be able to employ bulk batch actions, right? You need to do it every single time, update every single time a sale comes through, right? So you might not be able to kind of optimize in that sense, but the delivery is expected in real time, right? So you're processing these records by records, right? So a lot of the use cases that drive high task usage, 8 to 10% will be all these kind of real-time use cases. That's what we see from all the recipes across the board. But mainly, 85% of recipes that drive task usage are really in the data processing space. So we've done a lot this year, right, in that, and we'll go through some of the new features as well and how they help with task optimization. So why optimize, right? On the left-hand side here, starting with the data integration use cases that I talked about, you don't want to just optimize for tasks, right? For these types of use cases, you're really trying to drive throughput, right? You want to go through really large data volumes very efficiently, right? So it's not just about kind of reducing number of tasks. performance is really what we care about, right? Secondly, of course, it's a capacity you buy from Ocado, right? So like your mobile data, like your electricity, you want to kind of avoid waste and misuse, right? And of course, lastly, this is often overlooked, right? It's actual API capacity in your apps. So if you have Salesforce and a whole bunch of users, not just in Ocado, right, that are calling Salesforce APIs, but other apps and also Salesforce itself, right? You're independently accessing Salesforce APIs, right? So you don't have oversight to what everyone is doing, but you don't want a use case to just blow through your daily rate limit, right? So if you're doing some heavy use cases, you want to kind of look out for that as well on your SaaS API capacity. Right, so let's look at an example about kind of optimizing and how we can employ kind of different strategies for bringing a recipe that processes large CSV file. So a CSV file comes into Amazon S3. We do like a for each. We validate all these records before upserting them into Salesforce, right? So here we're consuming quite a number of tasks, right? 90,000 per day, because this comes in every day at midnight, right? You add some steps here to basically put all the records into a collection. So this is using the collections by Ocado utility. You query it, and then again you upsert that into Salesforce. This already gives you a 10x kind of reduction in tasks. And taking it just one step further, you can reduce this down to 4 tasks, right? Basically utilizing bulk APIs in Salesforce. Right, so it's a pretty big kind of pretty big improvement from what we saw just now, from 90,000 tasks, right, all the way down to 4. Okay, so some of the new features that are really, really exciting, right? There are a whole suite of data features, features in the data processing space, right? And it was talked about during the product keynote. And there's also a session that will happen tomorrow at 4 p.m. that Sai is running. And he'll talk a little bit more details for some of these data integration use cases. But basically, data integration use cases, they account for almost 20% of all use cases today, and this is growing, right? So Ocado has a really significant focus in this area at the moment. And it's not just about optimizing number of tasks, right? But optimizing throughput, and task just happens to be one of the positive implications on that, right? And these are the use cases, again, where task consumption is heaviest, right? ETL, ELT use cases, large files, that's where optimization usually starts, right? So these boxes marked in green, these are the new features that we have added in the recent year that will basically help users scale their data processing capabilities. So the new approach to large data sets starts from Ocado file storage, right? This is the core feature that facilitates large files. It's an intermediate storage entity, right, where you basically store files and simply put, right, so there's a new way now in Ocado to handle large data files and file sizes, right? So basically, stream your data into Ocado, right, store that in file storage, use SQL transformation to cleanse it, and then stream it back out, right? So you can persist the file and actually append to it, or it could also be a transient file for ETL pipeline orchestration, right? So this technique allows you to process large data sets much faster and also makes it easy to build and maintain ETL pipelines. So what does this mean in terms of task optimization, right? So let's take an example. We're extracting a file with 2.4 million rows and loading that into Google BigQuery. Right, so you see on the left-hand side, the old kind of batch processing method, and on the right-hand side, the new 2 recipes that we're going to use with file storage, right? Here on the left-hand side, we are basically processing in batches of 2,000, and just not just the task reduction, right? You notice the throughput as well, right? And the amount of time that's taken to kind of process this entire job is much faster when basically the file gets appended in file storage, right? And then you take it out and load that into BigQuery, right? So big kind of a significant improvement there, both in terms of tasks as well as total time taken. So much higher throughput with file storage. The next feature that we want to talk about is SQL transformations, right? So it allows you to take multiple sources of data, kind of join them, write SQL on them, performs all sorts of queries, fancy queries, and then spit out the result. In this example, we are looking at a daily load of 6 million rows and using SQL transformation to load that into sales, into Marketo, sorry. There's a typo there. So a bunch of different source applications, files from your on-prem system, from your legacy system, their leads, and you want to do an email lookup with file storage. And SQL transformations basically kind of dedupes and cleanses that data before it gets sent into Marketo. So this is the old recipe where you're basically taking multiple sources from different apps, right? You have cloud leads on Google Drive and other file contents on Google Drive, and basically looking at using collections to kind of clean that up before kind of bulk importing that into Marketo, right? In terms of, you can look at the two recipes side by side in terms of complexity and maintenance. On the right-hand side, you're really just maintaining the SQL query within the SQL transformations action, right? So, much, much better in terms of managing your recipes thereafter as well, right? So the files are basically stored in file storage at this point, and then we're querying all the sources. You can see the three sources on the right-hand side there. And we're basically writing SQL on those before the bulk load into Marketo. Yeah. So you can see, just using this SQL transformation and file storage together, we're taking 500 tasks to become 2 tasks, and the amount of time taken is significantly reduced as well, right? In terms of total time, as well as the amount of time taken for transformation. So huge improvements across the board, right? Okay. Other capabilities that are coming up soon. So bulk triggers, as well as bulk actions in databases, right? So today, right, in terms of typical kind of integrations and workflows, you're working with one-to-one record syncs, right? To improve throughput, you kind of use batch, right? But when it comes to ELT, ETL, the scale of batch doesn't really work anymore because it's in the thousands, right? So it's also very important to note on the right-hand side that the bulk triggers already pick up the deltas, right? So instead of using a scheduler and writing a query to understand the deltas, right, the bulk trigger kind of handles that for you. So you just kind of pick that up and upload the file into Salesforce. So in terms of API calls, number of calls that you make to Salesforce, as well as tasks, there's significant reduction as well. Yep. So you can notice over here that also that the bulk triggers don't have batch size limitations anymore. So you can really handle really large loads with the new bulk triggers and actions. So today the bulk triggers are available on 5 different connectors: Marketo, Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, and the bulk actions are available in Snowflake and SQL Server.
It's on the roadmap.
No, they're available right now.
Like SQL Server database on the roadmap? Or?
Sorry, MySQL. That's my bad. Yeah. Yep. So the next feature, just exciting and in early access, is API proxy. So with API platform, right, the pattern has always been to go from the call API, process the steps in the recipe. But if you want to use your backend APIs, right, so basically it goes, you can set up that with API platform as a layer on top, set up a backend API and a proxy in the form of a HTTP connection. So especially if you have your own APIs, right, make use of API proxy to protect them, right? Through all the functionalities like modern authentication schemes, right, DDoS protection, and end-to-end observability, right? So why this saves tasks, right? So because we remove recipes as a layer, right, we can't count tasks the same way. So what we care about is simply the number of requests that are coming through using the API proxy, right? And this is so much more efficient for us, so we want to pass down those savings to you as well. So API proxy is already part of the API platform add-on. So you have that, you can Basically, it's in early access today, so come to us. We can give you kind of early access to this, and a really generous number of requests is included, right, as part of the add-on today already. Okay, so those are all the new features, right? Let's talk about some of the other optimization strategies that we can employ to kind of reduce tasks as a whole. So there are 4 main strategies. The first one is to, of course, reduce the number of jobs from the get-go. Right, so filtering out from the source will help you significantly in reducing the number of tasks overall. So simply employ the use of trigger conditions to filter out events that you don't need to process in your job. That will help you cut down a significant number of tasks. Right. Secondly, use bulk and batch. Right. As far as possible, as far as your use case allows, right, bulk and batch actions and triggers are definitely the way to go if we're trying to optimize a large use case. And lastly, for reducing number of jobs, right, increase the poll intervals, right? So in every polling trigger, there's possibility to increase the poll interval so it doesn't, call your API that often. It doesn't process jobs, as often as well. Now, the second strategy would be to just reduce the number of rows and load. So again, right, using queries natively, whether in Snowflake or in this example in Salesforce, right, to just write queries in SQL and SOQL to filter out the records, right? So based on the records that you actually need. Right, so filtering out with SQL and SOQL kind of queries. The next strategy is to employ ELT instead of ETL patterns for large data loads. Right, so with ELT patterns, the large data doesn't pass through Workado and it's not directly processed. But instead, Workado is used to kind of orchestrate the movement of data between the source and target systems, so depending on their capabilities, right? So employing ELT over ETL will help you save a significant number of tasks as well. And lastly, reducing the number of API calls and steps, right? So again, using batch and bulk actions instead of using, processing every row, right? Do it in batches and in bulk, and that will cut down, a significant number of records processed. This is a capability that we added after we heard that there were a lot of basically actions that we're using calling variables. So instead of declaring them kind of one at a time, declare them in a single action, multiple variables in a single action. And then lastly, in this strategy, right, handling complex arrays is a pretty common use case for using custom code. So instead of going through nested loops, right, you can cut that down by executing one Python code, right? So the total number of tasks will be cut down much more significantly with that. So lastly, overall architecture, right? So I talked to a customer recently. They basically, if you have a lot of functions, right, reduce the load right at the top, right? Not look at, filter the data out at the primary recipe rather than passing all the records downstream. And that's going to be huge, huge improvements in terms of processing time. So it's important to look at overall recipe architecture and, your kind of recipes overall to kind of cut down on the number of steps that are processed downstream. Okay, so in terms of monitoring tasks, I think it's important for different personas such as usage analysts, admins, success sponsors, to basically look at, in your workspaces, how to kind of manage tasks across the board, right? So starting from the top, right? So if you are in, use AHQ, you could be requiring oversight across multiple workspaces. Right, so in AHQ, in the usage tab, you can see basically the usage across all your workspaces. You get a high-level overview on what is being used across all your teams. right? Then you can also drill down from HQ level into specific workspaces. So in here we can see the email marketing workspace and a summary of the usage across the 3 environments. Again, if you're in the individual workspace itself, right, in the account settings, subscription plan page, basically you can filter out the task usage by environment as well. So monitoring it at an environment level. And this is important because you don't want to kind of use a lot of tasks in dev and test, right? So you want to make sure that you monitor that and look at just prod usage, right? You want to make sure that you try to cut down on dev and test usage. And we have some strategies that we'll talk about later to kind of help with that as well. Yeah, again, in individual environments, when you are looking at your workspace, right, you can go to the dashboard to get a full view of what is happening with your recipes and task consumption. So there's an overall number at the top there, but also in every row, there will be kind of individual task consumptions across your recipes. So you can use this to slice and dice, filter by projects, by recipes, by different types of apps that are being used as well. And this can be done for all recipes across the workspace. Right, but what if you don't want to kind of actively monitor that, right? So it's not easy to kind of go in there every day, kind of look at how much is being consumed, right? So here I have an example using Recipe Ops. So Recipe Ops is a connector that essentially helps us manage all the recipes that are in our workspaces, right? So starting from the top here, we're basically trying to get notifications whenever a recipe is started in dev or test. Right. So when someone, when a developer, a builder, maybe accidentally starts a recipe in dev, right, we immediately get triggered and get notified, right? So we can wait for a specific amount of time. This can be set on the action level, and then we basically get the task count for that particular recipe that just started. If it's greater than whatever limit you want to set for that environment, so let's say if in dev, right, past, let's say 1,000 tasks. You really want to stop the recipe. You don't want that to continue getting used because it's consuming precious resources, right? So you want to stop that recipe and also post a message for the developer in Slack. If you want to manage spikes in individual recipes as well, there's a way to do that with Recipe Ops, with basically managing all the task numbers in the lookup table, right? So getting all your recipes, putting them in a lookup table, so it'll look something a little bit like this, right? So all recipe IDs, recipe names, the task usage, and the task usage in the previous usage, the previous amount of time, right? So then using that to kind of calculate the difference between the previous usage and the current. And if it's spiked, right? If it's spiked in the last 10 minutes, right? Post a message on Slack, as well as update your team members on the fact that hey, this recipe has gone from more than 20% in the last 10 minutes, right? So on this, what's on the roadmap, right? I think we looked at a lot of things about kind of monitoring tasks. So we want to roll out default alerts, right, to all customers about task usage. So this rolls up all your usage across your workspaces and environments. So even if you have environments or workspaces that are separate from each other, we will roll them up and then send you kind of default alerts when you hit a certain threshold. So right now it's set at 50, 70%, and 85%. So these will go out to the admins of your respective workspaces. So one thing that is important to call out here, if you haven't already, right, do fill in that kind of email notification center in your workspaces, right? So we know exactly where to send these messages to. Should go out to the primary admins of those workspaces, right? So this is upcoming. We're planning to do a beta rollout to different waves of customers over the next few months. Secondly, better dashboarding, right? So we know currently as you saw in the subscription page earlier, it's just a summary of basically what's in your workspace. We want to introduce definitely better dashboarding to view your usage metrics So here we just have an overview of all the how all the projects are contributing to your overall task usage. But you'll also be able to kind of drill down below that to all the individual recipes and the task usage there as well. And you can see a lot more ways to kind of filter, slice and dice. You can group by recipes or tasks, sort by environments, as well as look at individual projects, right, to get a really good view on what exactly is consuming tasks here. Yeah, we also have plan to introduce different views of the dashboard and allow forecasting as well, right, based on your overall average usage. What does that look like in the next couple of weeks, couple of months? What could that look like in your workspace, right? So really exciting set of changes for the usage visibility side of things, and we hope this will really kind of improve the lives of the folks who are looking at and trying to optimize recipes in your workspace. Sorry? Oh, this will be, this is currently being worked on. We're looking at 2-3 quarters down the line. Yep, again, so with alerts, I think you saw the default alerts we wanted to send out just now. We also want to introduce the idea of setting up custom alerts. So be able to basically set different thresholds based on different safe searches and create alerts based on that. I think you all saw Workato Insights today at the keynote, right? So Workato Insights also includes the ability to use kind of usage data and to create custom dashboards. So what you see on screen here is an example of just a usage dashboard in general. You can also cross that with other insights data sources like the recipe data, to kind of contrast that with ROI dashboards, or just build out a custom kind of usage dashboard by project, by recipe, by department, by teams. How you kind of how you set up. You can slice and dice that any way you want with Workato Insights. Thank you. I think that's all.